My name is Alan Patching. Very brief background, I'm a university professor, I'm a registered psychotherapist in 2 countries, and I'm a registered or board certified clinical hypnotherapist in 3 countries. I'm a practicing clinician on the Gold Coast in Queensland, and the centre of my practice has been for sometimes women's issues, and in particular female infertility. That's what this program's about, to help people who are having difficulty with fertility challenges. The purpose of the video in a single nutshell is to bring you a program or details of a program and the components of a program that you can put together to enhance your chances of becoming pregnant. My research showed that the most powerful stressor for a woman trying to becoming pregnant with IVF and failing was the failure to fulfill the maternity drive, the drive to become a mother. Then there's the fact that you have to pay for another round of IVF, anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000. And then there's the pressure that what if this fails and we have to spend that money again? Now, of course, the more that stress combines with other stressors such as having to integrate work and everyday life with the process of undergoing IVF, with all the injections and various procedures, which of themselves can be very, very stressful, all add up to create an immense amount of pressure for women undergoing IVF. And eventually that stress extends out to be a pressure on relationships and workplace circumstances, and it can all turn ugly very, very quickly. Now, how important is stress in the business of trying to become pregnant, either naturally or using IVF? Well, I would contend it's very, very important. There has been a ton of research done about the effect of stress on becoming pregnant, either naturally or using IVF. Some studies have shown that yes, there's a definite causative effect. In other words, if you're overstressed, you won't become pregnant either naturally or perhaps even using IVF. Still, other studies have shown that there's a correlation between the two, saying that yes, there seems to be a relationship, but we can't say that too much stress in your life will prevent you becoming pregnant or cause IVF to fail. In 2014, late in 2014, a study was put out by a group in America, the first of its kind in the world, and it was run by a group led by a person called Lynch. And what the Lynch group found was that using real biomarkers, they could tell that stress has an effect on people trying to get pregnant naturally. Well, most previous research was done around the principle of let's ask the people some questions based on well-respected psychological profiles, which are survey questions, to test how stressed they were, etc. But it really gets down to their opinion, their perception of how stressed they were. What we were really looking for from a scientific base is a measure of the stress hormones in their body, rather than their opinion of how stressed they felt. Now, in the past, the only way one could go about that in the medical world was using blood tests. One could not be sure in research whether the stress chemicals found came from the stress associated with their lifestyle or whatever, or whether it came from the fear of the needle that was going to be put into them to draw the blood. They made a definite conclusion that there is a causative link between people trying to get pregnant naturally and stress. And what we found is that highly stressed people, in the Lynch study what we found, was highly stressed women, one, had a lower chance of becoming pregnant, and secondly, took a lot longer to become pregnant if they did. Now, the Lynch study did not connect with IVF, but it simply makes sense that if the stress had an effect on women trying to become pregnant naturally, there's a big chance it would have an effect on those undergoing IVF. That was ground-breaking research. The expression in that woman's voice when she rang to tell me that she was pregnant was something I will never forget. The joy that I felt, the sense of being able to help, the sense of accomplishment for them and with them, was an experience that I'll never forget, and I can't get too much of it. And to this day, anytime a couple or a woman rings me and say, "It worked, I'm pregnant," I share in their joy almost to the same level, I think. It's just an amazing experience. And I want to have that experience with you. Back to the story. All I did was come up with a process for dealing with stress at 5 phases across the cycle. Let me tell you a little bit about that process. How do we go about coming up with a program that would provide a solution? Well, I simply looked from the previous research at where people experience stress. So the stages again were pre-cycle, was stage number 1. The second was pre-egg collection. The third one was the transfer period, or what we call the transfer protocol. The fourth stage was the pregnancy test weight. And finally, after the test, the first trimester of pregnancy. And of course, when we're undertaking something like IVF, we find, or women find, that they have no control over that process whatever. And that of itself was a major stressor. In fact, the second strongest stressor I found in my research, that lack of control. Well, this program is designed in part to give you back some of that control, because it's letting you contribute to the process of becoming pregnant from, if you like, a medical or a clinical perspective. But for the most part, it's really about either dealing with significant fears about pregnancy or childbirth, or significant events in the past that might have led to some concern about being a mother, for example. So during this time, we're going to work with continuing to help you relax, but we're now going to introduce a second phase. And in this phase, we get you to use vivid imagination. So we have you imagine that the chemistry of your body is working perfectly, that the eggs are developing perfectly and more than you imagined and healthier, etc. than you expected. And the whole point of this process is to have your body relax away from the stressful negativity into positive images of what you want your body to do. Imagine your body producing the chemicals at their absolute best levels. Imagine them producing eggs that are so healthy, it's just unbelievable. Imagine the number of those eggs being exactly what your doctor wants them to be. Imagine the endometrium, the lining of your uterus, being the perfect thickness to accept the fertilized embryo at the time that's necessary down the track in the cycle. There are so many ways of just learning to relax, which are beneficial for everyday life, but are so beneficial, if not absolutely necessary, to help prepare you for your IVF cycles. From a clinic, an IVF clinic in Israel with his team, had the procedure by itself. Transfer, during the actual transfer, and once again immediately or as soon as possible after the transfer has taken place. At least once, preferably twice a day, in the period between the test and the transfer. Go to my website, once again that's www.ivf-assist.com,